Okay, we're back. Just done the Joe Wicks workout this morning. Very enjoyable it was too. Toothless and our little Jasmine Dragon is still smoking away in the background. And this will be, fingers crossed, the last chapter I'm going to upload as a pre-done video, hopefully, if we get the rights and the okay from YouTube, on Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock. I will be reading chapter 12 live for everybody, so if you want to join me for that, that's fine. If you don't, then you'll no doubt see it after it's recorded. Right, okay, so chapter 11. Things are not looking very good for Hiccup and the boys at the moment, and this is chapter 11. This is Thor is angry. The storm raged through the whole of that night. Hiccup lay unable to sleep as the wind hurled about the walls like 50 dragons trying to get in. "Let us in! Let us in!" shrieked the wind. "We're very hungry!" Out in the blackness and way out to sea, the storm was so wild and the waves so gigantic that they disturbed the sleep of a couple of very ancient sea dragons indeed. The first dragon was averagely enormous, about the size of a largish cliff. The second dragon was gob-smackingly vast. He was the monster mentioned earlier in the story, the great beast who had been sleeping off his Roman picnic for the past 6 centuries or so, the one who had recently been drifting into a lighter sleep. The great storm lifted both dragons gently from the seabed like a couple of sleeping babies and washed them on the swell of one indescribably large wave onto the long beach just outside Hiccup's village. And there they stayed, sleeping peacefully, while the wind shrieked horribly all around them like wild Viking ghosts having a loud party in Valhalla, until the storm blew itself out, and then the sun came up, and the beach was full of dragon and very little else. Now the first dragon was enough to give you nightmares. The second dragon was enough to give your nightmares nightmares. Imagine an animal about 20 times as large as a Tyrannosaurus Rex, more like a mountain than a living creature, a great, glistening, evil mountain. He was so encrusted with barnacles, he looked like he was wearing a kind of jewelled armour, but where the little crustaceans and the coral couldn't get a grip, in the joints and the crannies of him, you could see his true colour. A glorious dark green. It was the colour of the ocean itself. He was awake now, and he had coughed up the last thing he had eaten, which was the standard of the English Legion, with its pathetic ribbon still flying bravely. He was actually using it as a toothpick, and the eagle was proving very, very useful for teasing out those irritating little pieces of flesh and bone that get stuck between your 20-foot back teeth. The first person to discover the dragons was Bad Breath the Gruff, who set out very early to check how his nets had fared in the storm. He took one look at the beach, rushed back up to the chief's house and woke him up. We have a problem, Chief," said Bad Breath. "What do you mean, a problem?" snapped Stoic the Vast. Stoic had not slept well at all. He had lain awake worrying. What kind of father did put his precious laws before the life of his son? But then again, what kind of son would fail the precious laws that the father had looked up to and believed in for many years? By morning, Stoic had made the awesome decision that he was going to reverse the solemn pronouncement he had made on the beach and unbanish Hiccup and the other boys. "It is weak of me, weak," said Stoic to himself gloomily. "Squid-Face the Terrible would have banished his son in the twinkling of an eye. Loudmouth the Gouter would have positively enjoyed it. What is the matter with me?" I should be banished myself, and I've got no doubt that that is what Mogadon the Meathead is going to suggest. All in all, Stoic was not in a great state to deal with any more problems. There are a couple of humongous dragons on the Long Beach, said Bad Breath. Tell them to go away, said Stoic. You tell them, Chief, said Bad Breath. Stoic stomped off to the beach. He returned again looking very, very thoughtful. Did you tell them? Asked Bad Breath. Tell it, said Stoic. The larger dragon appears to have eaten the smaller one. I didn't like to interrupt. I think I shall have to call a council of war. The rest of the hooligans, the meatheads, woke that morning to the terrible sound of the big drums summoning them to a council of war, which was only used in times of dreadful crisis. Hiccup awoke with a start. He had hardly slept at all. Toothless, who had crept into bed with Hiccup the night before, was nowhere to be seen. The bed was quite cold, therefore he had obviously been gone for quite some time. Hiccup dragged his clothes on hurriedly. They had dried overnight and were so stiff with salt that it was like putting on a shirt and leggings made out of wood. He wasn't sure what he was meant to do, as this was the morning and that he was supposed to go into exile. He followed everybody else into the great hall. The meatheads had spent the night there because it had not been the weather for camping. On the way, he bumped into Fishlegs. He looked as if he had slept as badly as Hiccup. His glasses were all on crooked. What's happening? Asked Hiccup. Fishlegs shrugged his shoulders. Where's Horrorcow? Asked Hiccup. Fishlegs shrugged his shoulders again. Hiccup looked around. As the crowd pushed its way towards the great hall, he noticed that there was not a single domestic dragon anywhere to be seen. Normally they are never ever far away from their master seals at shoulders, yapping and snarling and sneering at each other. There was something faintly sinister about their disappearance. Nobody else had noticed. There was such a tremendous babble of excitement and such a crush of enormous Vikings that not everybody could get into the great hall, and there was a big jumble of barbarians shouting and shoving outside. Stoic called for silence. I have called you here today, boomed Stoic, because we have a problem on our hands. A rather large dragon is sitting on the Long Beach. The crowd were deeply unimpressed. They were hoping for a more important crisis. Mogadon voiced the general disapproval. The big drums, Stoic, are only used in times of ghastly, deadly peril, said Mogadon in amazement. You have summoned us here at a horribly early hour. Mogadon had not slept well either. He'd been on the stone floor of the great hall and he only got his helmet for a pillow. Just because of a dragon? I do hope that you are not losing your grip, Stoic, he sneered, hoping that actually it probably was. This is no ordinary dragon, said Stoic. This dragon is huge, enormous, gob-smackingly vast. I have never seen anything like it. This is more of a mountain than a dragon. Not having seen the dragon mountain, the Vikings remained unimpressed. They were used to bossing dragons about. The dragon, said Stoic, must of course be moved, but it is a very big dragon. What should we do, old Wrinkly? You are the thinker of the tribe. Now you flatter me, Stoic, said old Wrinkly, who seemed rather amused by the whole thing. It's a sea dragonus, a giganticus, a maximus, and a particularly big one. I'd say very cruel, very intelligent, ravenous appetite. But my field is early Icelandic poetry, not large reptiles. Professor Jobbish is the Viking expert on the subject of dragons. Perhaps you should consult his book on the subject. Of course, said Stoic. How to Train Your Dragon, wasn't it? I do believe that Gobber burgled that very book from the Meathead Public Library. He gave a naughty look at Mogger the Meathead. This is an outrage, boomed Mogger. That book is Meathead property. I demand its instant return or I shall declare war on the spot. Oh, put a sock in it, Mogger, said Stoic. With soppy librarians like yours, what can you expect? The hairy, scary librarian blushed a delicate pink and shook in his size 18 shoes. Baggy Bum, hand me the book from the fireplace, yelled Stoic. Baggy Bum stretched out one of his great octopus arms and picked the book off the shelf. He lobbed it across the heads of the crowd and Stoic caught it, to much cheering. Morale was high. Stoic bowed to the hordes and handed the book to Gobber. Gobber! 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 Yelled the crowd. It was Gobber's moment of triumph. A crisis demands a hero, and he knew he was the man for the job. His chest swelled with self-importance. Oh, it was nothing really, he bellowed modestly. A bit of basic burglary keeps me in practice. Shh! Hissed the crowd like sea snakes as Gobber cleared his throat. How to Train Your Dragon, announced Gobber solemnly. He paused. Yell at it. There was another long pause. And, said Stoic. Yell at it and... That's it, said Gobber. Yell at it. There's nothing in there about the sea dragon giganticus maximus in particular, asked Stoic. Gobber looked through the book again just to make sure. No, not as such, said Gobber. Just a bit about yelling at it, really. Said Stoic. It's brief, isn't it? I've never noticed that before, but it is brief. Brief, but to the point, like us Vikings, he added hastily. Thank Thor for our experts. Now, said Stoic in his most chief-like manner, since it is such a large dragon, vast, interrupted old Wrinkly happily, gigantic, stupendously enormous, 5 times as big as the big blue whale. Yes, thank you, old Wrinkly. Said Stoic, since it is indeed on the rather large side, we're going to need a rather large yell. I want everybody on the cliff tops yelling at the same time. Oh, what should we yell? Asked Baggy Bum. Something brief and to the point, said Stoic. Go away! The tribes of the meathead and hooligans gathered at the top of the cliff tops overlooking the long beach, and looked down at the impossibly vast serpent which was stretched out on the sand, smacking its lip as it devoured the last morsels of its late unfortunate companion. It was so big that it seemed unlikely that it could be alive until you saw it move like an earthquake or a trick of the eyes. There are times when size really is important, thought Hiccup to himself, and this is most definitely one of them. Dragons are vain and cruel and amoral creatures, as I've said. This is all very well when they're a lot smaller than you, but when a dragon's bad nature is multiplied into something the size of a hillside, how exactly do you deal with it? Gobber the Belt stepped forward to lead the yelling as the most respected yeller among them all, his chest swelled with pride once more. 1, 2, 3. 400 Viking voices screamed as one. Go away! And added for good measure the Viking war cry. Ah! The Viking war cry was designed to chill the blood of Viking enemies at the commencement of battle. It is a truly horrifying, electrifying shriek that begins by mimicking the furious yell of a swooping predator, which then turns into the victim's scream of pure terror, and ends with a horribly realistic imitation of the death gurgles as he chokes on his own blood. It is a scary noise at the very best of times, but shouted all together by 400 barbarians at 8 o'clock in the morning, it was enough to make the mighty Thor himself drop his hammer and blub like a little baby. There was an impressive silence. The mighty dragon then turned his mighty head in their direction. There were 400 gasps as a pair of evil yellow eyes as big as 6 tall men narrowed down to slits. The dragon opened its mouth and let out a sound so loud and so terrifying that 4 or 5 passing seagulls dropped down dead with fear on the spot. It was a noise that made the Viking war cry seem like the faint cry of a newborn baby in comparison. It was a terrible, alien, otherworldly noise that promised death and no mercy, and everything awful. There was another rather impressive silence. With one delicate movement of his talon, the dragon ripped through Gobber's tunic and trousers from head to toe as if he were peeling fruit. Gobber gave a most unheroic shriek of outraged modesty. The dragon placed the same talon upright in front of Gobber the Belch and flicked him like a spitball. Way over the Vikings' heads and over the walled fortifications of the village. The dragon put his vast, cracked old paw to his reptilian lips, and he blew the Vikings a kiss. The kiss streaked through the sky and scored a direct hit on both Stoic and Mogadon ships, which had survived the storm and were rocking the safety of Hooligan Harbour. All 50 of them burst simultaneously into flames. The Vikings ran away from the cliff as fast as their 800 legs could carry them. Now Gobber the Belch had the luck to land on the roof of his own house. The deep layers of soggy grass broke his fall as he went through them, and he ended up sitting stark naked in his own chair in front of the fire, dazed, a little embarrassed, but on the whole unharmed. "Okay then," said Stoic to 400 Vikings, suddenly looking scared but wildly overexcited. "So the yelling doesn't quite work." They'd reassembled in the centre of the village. "And as our fleet is out of action, we have no means of escape from the island," Stoic continued. "What we need now is," he said, trying to sound as if he was on top of the situation, "is for somebody to go and ask the monster whether he comes in peace or in war." "I shall go," volunteered Gobber, who had rejoined them at that moment, still determined to be the hero. He was trying to sound noble and dignified, but it was very, very difficult to be truly dignified with grass in your hair and wearing your cousin Agatha's pink dress, which was the only thing Gobber could find to wear in the whole house. "Do you speak Dragonese?" asked Stoic in surprise. "Well, no," said Gobber admittedly. "Nobody here speaks Dragonese. It's forbidden by order of Stoic the Vast. Oh, hear his name and tremble. Dragons are inferior creatures who we yell at. Dragons might get above themselves if we talk to them. Dragons are tricksy and must be kept in their place." "Hiccup can speak to dragons," said Fishlegs very quietly from the middle of the crowd. "Shh, Fishlegs," whispered Hiccup, desperately digging his friend in his ribs. "Well, you can," said Fishlegs stoutly. "Don't you see? This is your chance to be a hero, and we're all going to die anyway, so you might as well take it." "Hiccup can speak to dragons!" shouted Fishlegs very loudly indeed. "Hiccup?" said Gobber the Belch. "Hiccup?" asked Stoic the Vast. "Yes, Hiccup," said Old Wrinkly. "Small boy, red hair, freckles. You were going to put him into exile this morning." Old Wrinkly looked stern. "In order that the blood of the tribe should not be weakened. You remember? Your son, Hiccup." I know who Hiccup is, thank you, old Wrinkly, said Stoic the Vast, uncomfortably. Does anyone know where he is? Hiccup, come forward. Looks like you could come in useful after all, old Wrinkly murmured to himself. Here he is, yelled Fishlegs, patting Hiccup on the back. Hiccup started to wriggle through the crowd until somebody noticed him and dragged him up, and he was passed over everybody's heads and put down in front of Stoic. Hiccup, said Stoic. Is it true that you can talk to dragons? Hiccup nodded. Stoic gave an awkward cough. This is a rather embarrassing situation, I know. I know we were about to banish you from the tribe. However, if you do what I ask, I am sure I speak for everybody when I say that you can consider yourself unbanished. We stand in awful peril and nobody else in the room can speak Dragonese. Will you go to this monster and ask him whether he comes in peace or in war? Hiccup said nothing. Stoic coughed again. You can talk to me now, son, said Stoic. I've unbanished you. So, the exile is off then, father, is it? Asked Hiccup. If I go and kill myself talking to this beast from hell, I will be considered heroic enough to join the tribe of hairy hooligans? Stoic looked more embarrassed than ever. Well, absolutely, son, he said. Okay then, said Hiccup. Okay, I'll do it. And that, Year 4 and friends, and whoever else happens to be watching, that is where we are stopping for this week. So by the end of today you will have all 11 chapters fully uploaded, so you'll be able to listen to as many as you want. We're hoping I'm hoping that soon we'll be able to get some comments up and things, so you can put some comments down. I would say, everybody, though, please keep them, any comments, inoffensive and in a good spirit, because after all, I'm doing this for my 8 and 9 year olds at school. I'm not doing this to be abused by parents and aunties and uncles who are sick of hearing my voice. And the plan is that on Monday at 3 o'clock, unless I am called into school, I shouldn't be in, I'm supposed to be on reserve next week, but my plan is that at 3 o'clock on Monday next week I will read chapter 12 live. So I will Marvellous Me all of my class, and I will ask the other teachers, certainly in Year 4, to do the same, to remind everybody. I will see if I can send a message through school out on Twitter or whatever to tune into the channel on Monday when I know that I've got permission, the rights to do it. Thank you everybody for humouring me this week. Well, I've done this for you. I've really enjoyed having a read. I don't know the book inside out. I haven't learnt it. I've read it several times, obviously, but I haven't learnt it. It's not like going on stage and doing anything. So there will have been mistakes in my reading, and I apologise for that. But hopefully you've enjoyed it. Just before I sign off, I would like to give a huge shout out and thank you to Ava Lily in my class. Her stepdad Alex and her mum Sophie have been on the other end of me doing this. They've been doing all the backgrounds and stuff for the videos on YouTube, and they've been sharing it and passing it on and sending it to people. And I've got Doncaster Free Press ringing me in a little while, I think, to come and have a chat about what I've been doing for you all, so that's quite nice. So a huge massive thank you to Alex and Sophie, and to all of you who've listened and watched and enjoyed or laughed at me. It doesn't really matter. We've done over 500 views. Brilliant. Year 4, Kirkchandler Junior School. Anybody else who happens to be watching, thank you. I've really enjoyed this week, and hopefully you'll all sign in on Monday afternoon for me. Catch you all later. Bye bye.